What's going on, guys? Something I don't talk about a lot on this channel is the fact that I am a pretty big believer in having smart surveillance cameras. I typically use Google Nest products. In fact, I think I've got like 4 or 5 cameras in my house in addition to a Nest thermostat. I really like having them. Kind of a paranoid person. When I leave, I'm far away from home. I like to be able to check in, make sure everybody's happy and healthy back here at the house. It's a really nice feature to have. And I also really like having that camera on the front porch so I can see when a package is coming in. I receive a lot of packages here, so I like to be able to see that it's arrived and that no one is stealing it, and to be able to know what's going on, who's at my door, so forth and so on. Now, recently, a company called Imilab, who I believe is sort of affiliated with Xiaomi, if you're familiar with that brand, they reached out to me and they said, Shane, we have a smart doorbell we would like for you to take a look at and give a proper review. And I've actually had the thing on hand now for, I believe, a couple of weeks it's been installed. I've actually been using it concurrently with my Nest camera. And I don't have a Nest doorbell, it's just a camera, but I think I can kind of provide a good comparison there as well. So like I said, I've got it here. Let's take a look at the hardware as well as some of the specifications here. So this is the actual doorbell unit itself. We have a 4 megapixel camera, a very large 5200 milliamp hour battery that they say lasts about 6 months on a charge. It charges via USB micro here on the back. On device human detection. So basically a person walks through, it's meant to be able to say, hey, that's a person. And that works relatively well. We're going to talk about how well that works a bit later. Key area detection, so you can kind of outline a particular area in your yard or your porch, what have you, that you want to be notified of, and maybe some other areas that you don't want to be notified of. Water resistant. It doesn't care if it's cold or hot. It seems to be a pretty decent product, and also it was really, really easy to install. The plate that it actually installs on is literally screwed into the side of my house, but basically it's just a plate with 2 screw holes. You screw it into your house, and this thing snaps into place, and you're done. From there, you've got this little base station here, which I think is actually kind of underrated. You plug this guy in wherever you want to, one, be able to hear the sound of your doorbell being rang, but also a feature that I wish more of these things had is an SD card slot, because obviously this thing has, cloud capabilities where this stuff can all be saved in the cloud, all the footage from your doorbell. But if you don't want to pay for cloud storage, just plug an SD card in there and you can save a ton of stuff, because it's not super duper high resolution. It's good enough. It's fine for what it's doing, but you can save a ton of footage on this doorbell itself. Now, before we go any further, let's get a little bit of context here. So this doorbell from Imilab is going to be launching on Kickstarter on June the 16th, the debut price of $89, and then there's going to be a final retail price of $139, and that kind of puts it right in this sweet spot for a lot of these doorbells. If you look at some of the competition here, the Nest doorbell with the battery usually is $179. It's on sale $50 off now at $129. $89 at launch for this thing seems pretty fair. The Eufy version of the same type of thing, $149. Again, we're going to undercut that price there. And then the one from Ring is $199. We're quite a ways cheaper than that one in that case. So, again, at $89 to start or $140 finally, it's going to be in the lower end of the price of these better doorbells. But of course, the price doesn't really matter all that much if the thing isn't any good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump over to an image here where you can see what's on my phone. We're going to pull up the Imilab app itself and also do some comparisons here with the Nest application, looking at the same front yard to kind of get a comparison here. All right, so we're looking at a live view of the Nest camera on the left and the Imilab on the right. So keep that in mind. Imilab is on the right. Now, one thing you're going to notice immediately from this is that my Nest camera is angled up higher and looking down, and it can kind of see a wide angle there. With the Imilab, it is down lower. It's a doorbell. So you're going to walk up and hit the doorbell. You can't put it up super high. It's down kind of at about, chest height there on my little bitty front porch. And if you look at the different images here, I think the Imilab is a sharper image, right? It's definitely maybe over sharpened a little bit. I would say that the Nest is maybe a little bit blurrier, but maybe more pleasing to look at. But you might get more detail here. We're a bit blown out on the trash can, so there's some give and take there. Keep in mind the Nest camera, though, I believe this was like a $200 camera. So, we're comparing it to something that is considerably more expensive than this thing is. But now let's look at some of our features here with this Imilab camera. And in fact, let's just go ahead and full screen that. So when you actually click on your front door, what you're going to be greeted by is a series of events for that particular day. Now you can also go in and change the day and then see the events for that particular day. From there, you can just sort of scroll around and click on an event, and it is going to play that particular video. If you want to look at the videos that are saved on your SD card, click on the settings up in the top right, click on SD card video, and there you're going to see all of the same events, but this time they're playing off of that SD card, playing locally instead of streaming over the internet. Let's go back into our settings and let's look at a little bit more of what we have here. So in terms of doorbell settings, you can see my battery life is at 89%, and it's been, I want to say, maybe 2.5 weeks. So that seems okay so far. You can change the sounds of your doorbell both indoor and out. You can change the voice volume adjustment, lens distortion, all this stuff. Night vision is automatic, all good stuff. You've got your activity zone detection, which I'm actually not using. I just have it surveilling all areas, and I'll get into how that stuff works a bit later, but you can see your settings there. SD card video we've looked at. Signal test is good if you just don't know if you're close enough to the thing. Well, this is going to be able to tell you, hey, does this thing have a good enough signal? And it says it is a good signal, so you know that you're okay. You can see how much storage is being used in your memory card, and this amount of time of recording, 0.23 gigabytes is all I'm using on an 8 gig card, so that's indicative of how long you could use this thing before having to delete anything. And yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of your settings. But now let's talk about how the thing actually works in practice. So one of the big advantages this thing has is that it's a doorbell. When someone walks up and hits the button, it dings, you know someone's there, but then also it's going to start recording from that moment, and that is really, really useful. When you compare that to something like my Nest camera, it only starts recording when it thinks it sees a person, and sometimes it sees people correctly, sometimes it doesn't see somebody that is there, sometimes it sees a bird and thinks that's a person, or a car and thinks that's a person, so relying on the camera to be like, that's a guy from a distance, doesn't always work super, super well. And in fact, I will say this. The Imilab camera, in terms of just automatic person detection, is worse than the Nest camera. And it's actually quite a bit worse, and I can kind of demonstrate this here. So at 10:51, my Nest camera picked up the mail carrier walking through the yard and bringing me my mail. If we go to the Imilab camera and we look at today, we can see that at 10:52, it has me walking outside to get the mail, but it does not have the mail person walking through. And this is something that happens all the time. I get my mail, my Nest camera says, there's the mail person, the Imilab camera doesn't see her. Why it sees me here, but not her there, is mysterious to me. Now, the other day, I decided to try and test this. I actually tried to walk through my yard in the same path that a mail carrier would take, to see if it would trigger. And you'll notice it didn't actually trigger until I was midway through the walkway, but it did actually see me there. If I go back though to the Nest camera, and we go back to the 9th, and we go to the same time, 8:49, you'll actually see that it picks up much more of this scene. So it gets me walking in from the far left, checking the mailbox, I'm being a mail person, and then I walk across the road. It gets all of it, whereas the Imilab camera, for whatever reason, just only gets me from there. And I think that's kind of an important distinction here. The doorbell is a really big advantage because if you hit the button, it's going to record. But if you're reliant upon it to see things that don't require somebody ringing your doorbell, it's going to be a little bit hit or miss. And it's only recording stuff that it thinks is relevant. When we look at the Nest camera, I'm paying for this, okay? So bear that in mind. This is a subscription, but I can look at everything that happened. So even if the Nest camera doesn't think it's relevant, I can watch it. Whereas on the Imilab camera, that is just simply not the case. You're only going to be seeing events that it triggered as well as a live view. And you can talk to people, you can do all sorts of things in that live view, but you can't just simply rewind back through all of time. But perhaps that's not something that really matters to you. Now keep in mind they do have their Imi Cloud service, which I believe, let me see exactly what this actually does cost. You're looking at about $2 a month, $40 a year. And then what they talk about here is 24/7 care, but that's not the same thing as 24/7 recording. As far as I can tell, there's no way to just scroll through full 24/7 recording. I think this is some sort of like customer support type thing. Cloud storage, encrypted upload, unlimited storage space. So if you don't want to pay that $2 a month and just use your SD card, that is something that you're fine to do as well. So this basically can be something that you can spend $90 on, hook it up, Someone rings the doorbell, you can see them, you can talk to them. You're maybe not going to be super duper reliant upon this thing to tell you anytime a person walks through your yard. Sometimes it's going to get that for me, sometimes it's not going to get that, but you're not going to necessarily have to spend that money on a subscription service if you don't want to. You can just plug in an SD card and you can see how long that's going to be able to last you before you're going to have to start deleting videos. I'm not sure if it deletes videos automatically that are so old on its own, or if it's something you have to go back in and do. At any rate, not something that you're going to have to do all that often. So there you go. That's pretty much how I would look at this product. You're going to spend $200 on the expensive, the premium ones. You're going to spend $90 or maybe, $140 when the thing is on regular price. How much of a difference is that really going to make to you? You know, that's something you're going to have to look at yourself, but it is definitely a whole lot cheaper, and it might be less than half the price of the big brands. And because of that alone, I mean, the thing is rock solid in terms of the hardware. It feels great, and it does a pretty decent enough job for what you're paying for. It does a really good job. So make that comparison yourself. Determine how much of the money you want to take out of your wallet to buy these things. If you want to go super premium, or if you want to get something like this Imilab camera that is pretty good, and for the price, it's probably really good. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks to Imilab for sending this thing over for me to review. There will be a link to the Kickstarter in the description down below. Don't forget to subscribe on your way out. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.